People love to believe that when the lights shut off and the cameras disappear, Hollywood finally exhales, that the chaos belongs only to premieres, red carpets, and box office weekends. But that's a comforting myth. In reality, this industry is small, airtight, and endlessly echoing. Nothing ever truly disappears. It just changes rooms, moving from private dinners to gated neighborhoods, from studio offices to late-night phone calls never meant to be overheard. What's unfolding around the Reiner family right now isn't casual gossip or recycled rumor. It's heavier than that. This isn't about shock value. It's about a legacy being quietly rewritten while most people are still looking in the wrong direction. For years, the story seemed almost too clean. Headlines framed the sudden collapse of Rob Reiner's family life as tragic but contained. A painful ending, neatly packaged. Case closed. But anyone paying attention to the murmurs inside Hollywood's inner circles knows that version barely scratches the surface. Especially when you start looking at what was happening inside that house during the final 5 years. Years marked not by peace, but by slow, accumulating fracture. That's where Tracy Reiner enters the picture. You might not immediately recognize her name, but her place in this story matters. She's the daughter of Penny Marshall, adopted by Rob during his marriage to Penny. That positioning gave her something rare: proximity without total immersion. She was family, but not trapped inside the same emotional fog that can make people ignore warning signs when things get uncomfortable. That distance is exactly why her recent revelation landed so hard. Tracy finally spoke about the last conversation she had with Rob, just days before everything went silent. And it wasn't a sentimental goodbye. There were no warm reflections, no dramatic farewell. By all accounts, it was colder than that. Not cruel, but stripped down, almost like a confession. The call came late on a Tuesday night. It wasn't long. Rob sounded off. This was the same man who gave the world The Princess Bride and Stand By Me, a filmmaker known for optimism, wit, and that unmistakable New York energy. He usually carried himself with certainty, even when things were messy. But that night, Tracy said, his voice was empty. He didn't want to talk about scripts. He didn't want to debate politics, something he normally loved. He called because he was afraid, and not afraid of illness or aging or career decline. He was afraid of what was happening inside his own home. Tracy shared that Rob admitted he no longer felt in control of his own story. Then came the line she says still haunts her. "I've been writing happy endings for strangers my whole life," he told her, "but I don't know how to write one for my son." That sentence reframes everything. This stops being about one shocking incident and becomes something far more painful. A father realizing too late that love without boundaries can be bent, weaponized, and turned inward. That realization doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, and when it does, it changes how you see everything that came before. And once you add one more name to the picture, this stops being a private family reckoning and starts to look like a broader Hollywood warning. Because Tom Cruise wasn't just a former collaborator. When he and Rob made A Few Good Men, it forged a bond built on pressure, discipline, and control. Tom is known for absolute command over his work, his body, his image, his environment. And people close to this situation say that kind of precision is exactly why he noticed the cracks long before most others did. Not the headlines, not the chaos. The quiet loss of control, not rumors, not gossip. Real warning signs, inside Rob Reiner's own family world. And according to people who were close enough to see it, Tom Cruise noticed those signs long before the rest of Hollywood caught on. But Tom didn't rush to the press or posture publicly. That's never been his move. When something feels wrong, he handles it privately, directly, intensely, and without an audience. That's how he's always operated. And now, as this story continues to unravel, word circulating through industry circles is that Tom is devastated by how everything played out. Devastated, but also angry. Not at Rob. At the environment that allowed things to quietly deteriorate without intervention. According to multiple insiders, Tom has spoken behind closed doors with several major Hollywood power players in recent months. No PR language, no softened phrasing, just blunt frustration. He reportedly called out what he sees as a culture of quiet enabling in wealthy, insulated enclaves like Brentwood, places where problems are smoothed over, not confronted, because confrontation feels too disruptive. Tom knew Nick Reiner. He watched him grow up. He saw the instability building over the years. And let's be honest, Nick's struggles were never completely hidden. They were visible enough that Rob even turned that pain into art years ago with Being Charlie. At the time, Rob believed that translating hardship into storytelling might help heal something. That understanding could come from expression. That empathy could soften the damage. But according to people familiar with Tom's perspective, he saw that approach very differently. Tom reportedly told those close to him that Rob's kindness, his instinct to protect, absorb, and shield, was working against him. That his heart was too big for the brutal reality of what addiction and psychological instability can actually do. From Tom's point of view, Rob was treating his son the way he treated actors, with patience, direction, and belief that guidance could restore balance. But life isn't a script. You can't coach disorder out of someone who's already spinning. You can't workshop chaos until it hits its mark. And when Tracy Reiner finally spoke about her last phone call with Rob, it confirmed exactly what Tom had feared for years. Rob admitted that the energy inside the house had shifted. Hard. What started as concern had turned into fear. He told Tracy something that has deeply unsettled everyone who's heard it since. He said he was locking his bedroom door at night. Sit with that for a moment. Rob Reiner, wealthy, powerful, living in one of the safest neighborhoods in Los Angeles, felt unsafe in his own home. He told Tracy he didn't recognize his son anymore, that it felt like looking into eyes he helped create but no longer understood. The connection was gone, so the question everyone keeps asking is obvious. Why didn't Tracy call authorities? Why didn't she rush over or sound the alarm? The answer is painful. Rob begged her not to. Even then, he was still protecting Nick, still shielding him from exposure, from headlines, from consequences. He made Tracy promise not to make a scene, not to bring attention, not to let cameras anywhere near the house. Rob believed he could still manage it. Like so many parents, he thought more patience, more resources, more quiet intervention would eventually calm the storm. Tracy kept that promise, and now she lives with the weight of it. Because honoring her father's wish for privacy ultimately cost everything. And this is where the story becomes deeply uncomfortable, because the focus shifts fully to Nick and to the reality no one wanted to face. The media is already rushing to paint Nick as a villain, and yes, some of the actions described are disturbing. But Rob never saw him that way. He didn't see a threat. He didn't see a headline. He saw a wounded child who needed help. According to Tracy, that belief guided every decision Rob made near the end. She revealed that in the final months, Rob was quietly cleaning up incidents that should have triggered immediate alarm. Damage inside the house repaired before staff arrived. Signs of chaos erased. Missing items, watches, memorabilia, things that mattered, explained away as misplacement. It wasn't denial, it was desperation. Rob wasn't lying to others, he was lying to himself, anything to keep the family from fully collapsing. And that detail hit Tom Cruise especially hard, because Tom believes problems must be confronted head-on, no matter how ugly it gets. And from his perspective, the moment fear entered that house, silence stopped being protection. It became danger. When he learned that Rob Reiner had been quietly hiding signs of volatile behavior, repairing damage, smoothing over incidents, erasing evidence, just to protect his son's image, it shook him deeply. People close to Tom Cruise say he was visibly rattled. To Tom, it looked like the purest form of parental sacrifice, and also the most heartbreaking mistake a parent could make. From his perspective, Hollywood itself played a role in breaking that family. It trapped them inside a bubble where accountability never fully landed. Tom reportedly said that if the same pattern had unfolded in a regular household, far from fame and influence, authorities would have been involved years earlier. But this was the Reiner family. Status softened consequences. Reputation delayed intervention. Security looked the other way. Assistants stayed quiet. Even professionals who should have stepped in convinced themselves it wasn't their place. That silence became part of the damage. When Tracy Reiner finally spoke, her account also pulled attention toward Michelle Singer Reiner, the quiet center of the household, the one holding everything together. In many ways, she was taking the hardest emotional blows. Rob admitted during that final call that Michelle was running on empty. "She's fading," he told Tracy. "I'm watching the light leave my wife's eyes." She was trying to save their son, but she was sinking with him instead. This wasn't only about physical outbursts. It was a relentless mental war, constant manipulation, late-night arguments that spiraled into breakdowns, hours of chaos followed by apologies, only for the cycle to reset the next morning. Exhaustion became the baseline. Hope became something rationed. And here's the part that unsettles people the most. We all grew up on Rob Reiner's films. We laughed, we believed, we trusted the worlds he created. When Harry Met Sally taught us that talking things through leads to understanding, his stories promised that intelligence wins, that words fix what's broken, that the third act delivers clarity and peace. But behind closed doors, real life refused to follow a script. Inside his own home, words stopped working. All that brilliance, every sharp line of dialogue, every perfectly written speech, couldn't touch what was happening. Logic didn't calm emotional explosions. Intelligence didn't overpower instability. According to Tracy, Rob sounded like a man who had finally realized that his greatest gift, communication, was useless against the force tearing through his family. Then she shared a detail that hasn't fully surfaced yet, and it's devastating. Rob had started keeping a journal, not a memoir, not a legacy project, not something meant for public eyes. It was a log, a daily record of what was happening behind closed doors. Rob told Tracy, "I'm writing it down so I know I'm not imagining this." He needed proof for himself, a paper trail of the love he gave, the patience he showed, the chances he kept extending. It was almost as if he were preparing a defense for a judgment he felt coming, whether from a court, the public, or something deeper. He wanted the truth documented. He wanted it known that he tried. Tracy believes those journals are now part of official evidence, and if they ever become public, they could shake the industry to its core. Yes, Tom Cruise reportedly knew about the journals. Word is that Rob confided in him months earlier during a brief private moment. Tom allegedly urged him to act, to use the documentation, to push for legal protection, to do something drastic before it was too late. But Rob couldn't bring himself to do it. He couldn't become the villain in his son's story. He wanted to be the rescuer, the father who somehow made everything right in the end. He chose hope over harsh reality. And that choice is what makes the aftermath so complicated, because what comes next won't be clean. There's likely a legal storm ahead, one that exposes uncomfortable truths about celebrity parenting, unchecked privilege, and the cost of silence in places where power makes it easier to look away. But beyond courtrooms, filings, and eventual outcomes, what lingers most is Tracy Reiner's voice. She's the one left holding the story together now, the bridge between the Rob Reiner the world adored and the frightened man who called her late that Tuesday night. And she isn't speaking out for attention or money. She's had access and visibility her entire life. She's speaking because she refuses to let this be flattened into a sudden tragedy narrative. This wasn't sudden, it was slow, grinding, and years in the making. Tracy wants people to understand that Rob wasn't blind. He knew exactly what he was facing. He walked into those final months fully aware of the risks, and he chose love, even when love became the most dangerous option available. She made one thing unmistakably clear. Rob didn't hold on because he was weak. He held on because he refused to stop believing in his child. That isn't cowardice, it's heartbreaking devotion. When you look back now at footage from Rob's final year, the signs feel impossible to miss. The weight loss, the exhaustion etched into his eyes. At the time, people brushed it off as age catching up, a lifetime of work finally slowing him down. But Tracy says it wasn't just aging. He was being worn down piece by piece, drained by the pressure of a secret he believed he had to carry alone. She believes the industry failed him. She believes the friends who slowly stopped visiting because things felt uncomfortable failed him too. Silence didn't protect Rob. It isolated him. In Tracy's view, the real damage wasn't done in one explosive moment. It was built over years of quiet, a silence that wrapped itself around Hollywood and tightened until there was nowhere left to breathe. That unspoken code, don't get involved, don't pry, don't make it messy, turned a fragile situation into a pressure chamber. And eventually, it burst. In this story, Tom Cruise stands as a symbol of the path that was never fully taken. Firm limits, strict boundaries, uncomfortable decisions made early rather than late. It's easy, looking back, to say Rob should have listened to the tougher voices around him, but love doesn't move that cleanly. Parenting certainly doesn't. You don't stop caring about your child just because they frighten you. That's the brutal truth Tracy is forcing people to confront. Loving someone doesn't shut off when things turn dark, and that's what makes this story so painful. In the coming weeks, the noise will only get louder. Attorneys will sharpen arguments. Experts will debate mental health, altered judgment, chemical factors, all real, necessary conversations. But Tracy doesn't want any of that to drown out the human reality of what those final moments felt like. Rob Reiner, a man who shaped American storytelling for 4 decades, reached the end believing he had failed his most important role. Not a film, not a legacy project, fatherhood. That belief is the real heartbreak. Tracy doesn't want the world to remember Rob only as a victim. She wants him remembered as a man who loved fiercely, even when love cost him everything. And she wants the lesson to land hard. If you see warning signs in your own family, don't wait. Don't be polite. Don't worry about appearances. Don't stay quiet to avoid discomfort. Ask for help loudly. Because silence, she believes, did more damage than any single act ever could. It wasn't one moment that ended Rob Reiner's story. It was years of quiet that let fear grow unchecked. So when tributes pour in, when clips from All in the Family or This Is Spinal Tap flood timelines, Tracy wants people to remember the other side too. Remember the late-night phone call. Remember the locked bedroom door. Remember the father documenting his own unraveling in a notebook, hoping, just maybe, that loving harder could change the ending. It didn't. And that's a truth no amount of Hollywood magic can rewrite. This isn't just another headline. It's a warning held up to every family that believes this could never happen to us. It happened to Rob Reiner, and if it could happen to someone with his resources, his intelligence, and his heart, then it can happen anywhere. The investigation isn't over. There are more recordings, more calls, more fragments that Tracy is still sorting through piece by piece. And as those details surface, one truth is already locked in. This story isn't finished. It's only just being fully seen. The message couldn't be clearer. The Rob Reiner we lost wasn't just a legendary creator or a cultural icon. He was a father standing inside a house already on fire, refusing to walk away because his child was still inside. He chose love over escape, even when love came with real fear attached. That choice defines everything that followed. Tom Cruise has every right to feel frustrated. Tracy Reiner has every right to feel shattered. And the public has every right to feel stunned. But there's another layer we can't ignore. The warning signs were there the whole time. We just convinced ourselves they were part of the performance. We mistook real danger for storytelling. We treated pain like content. And by the time the truth became impossible to ignore, the damage was already done. This wasn't a movie. There was no rewrite waiting at the end. The silence that wrapped around this situation didn't protect anyone. It allowed things to stretch, bend, and finally break. Now that Tracy has spoken, that silence is gone. And the echo of that final phone call will hang over Hollywood for a very long time. Because once someone speaks up, you can't unhear it. You can't unknow it. And now people are asking the questions they should have asked years ago. What else is written in those journals? Which moments were documented but never shared? Whose names sit quietly on those pages? People who saw the signs, people who felt something was off, people who chose comfort over confrontation. This story isn't closing, it's opening wider. Pull one loose thread and the whole picture starts to unravel. History tells us what comes next. More truths follow. Hollywood is built on image, but pressure cracks even the strongest masks. This isn't just about one family or one household. It's about a system that trains people to look away when things get uncomfortable, a culture where silence feels easier than stepping in. And that's why this matters. Not just because it's sad, but because it's instructive. It forces us to look at our own lives, our own families, our own warning signs. If something feels wrong, don't explain it away. Don't wait for the moment to pass. Moments don't pass. They pile up. This isn't just news. It's a cautionary tale. A reminder that love without boundaries can turn dangerous, and silence can do more damage than speaking out ever could. What happened here isn't fiction, even if it feels unreal. It's a real-world tragedy unfolding in real time, and the aftermath is only beginning. If this breakdown hit you, if it made you think, make sure you like the video, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Stories like this are unfolding every single day, and don't go anywhere yet. Check out the next video on your screen now for deeper dives into hidden truths and the stories that don't always make the headlines.